welcome to my review of A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. A Court of Silver Flames. A Court of Silver Flames. A Court of Silver Flames. This book turned out to be a whole of a lot better than I expected, especially the character arc that Nesta took. So I did a vlog while I was reading and annotating. So the first part of this video will be just a review on the book, spoiler free. The second part of the video will be my vlog, which will obviously contain spoilers. So let's just start off with the cover. Actually, there's a lot of controversy about this cover being different than the other books, even though she released new covers for the ACOTAR series. They still do not really fit in with this cover. It does not bother me as much, since this is not really, even though it's part of the ACOTAR world, it's not part of Feyre and Rhysand's arc anymore. So it's the cover is kind of fine with me. It's a different story in the same world. So you got your ACOTAR, your 4 ACOTAR books together with all their matching covers, and then ACOSF comes next with its own individual cover. The cover is actually really misleading, because I was sure this was a masquerade ball mask. It is not. It is so not a masquerade ball mask. But I understand the mask cover after reading the book. So the dedication in front is actually really sweet. Sarah writes, "For every Nesta out there, climb the mountain." And after you've read this book, this quote will really mean a lot to a lot of people. And then she says, "And for Joss, Taryn and Annie, who are the reason I keep climbing my own." So she dedicates this book to Josh, her husband, Taryn, her son, and Annie, her little dog, which features a lot in some of her live video chats. Okay, so let's jump right into it. With world building, in this book there's really not a lot of world building. I've only tagged 3 scenes that I actually should have tagged 4, but there's only like 4 new areas, worlds that we get to discover, and that is we get to see the house that Rhys built for Feyre. Cassian and Nesta travels to a place in the middle named Ured. We get to see the cave where the priestesses hold their services, and then of course we get to see the mountain Ramiel and its surrounding areas where the blood rite takes place. And that is pretty much it for world building. Since this is the 5th book, she really didn't need to do a lot of world building. Only the Night Court, the Yun City, and the Spring Court features for like 2 scenes, maybe. Yeah, 2 scenes I think. The rest is all just Night Court. The House of the Wind mostly, which we are familiar with, since this is where Rhys took Feyre when he saved her from the Spring Court. So the characters, all our old favorites feature in this book. Because this is Nesta and Cassian's story, Nesta and Cassian obviously features the most. So Nesta is the main character. Most of the story is written from her point of view, but we do get a few chapters that are from Cassian's point of view, which kind of lets us see into his head. So Cassian is the supporting character to Nesta. Rhysand, our Lord of the Night Court, will obviously feature, mostly in scenes where they have meetings or are just kind of their inner circle banter going on, and winter solstice and everything. There's no just a Rhysand scene. Feyre is also featured. Interestingly enough, although this book is mainly about Nesta, Feyre's character actually has a lot of development, a really great ordeal she has to go through in this book. And it was really weird witnessing all this from the point of view of Nesta and not being in Feyre's head. But you could literally, how she describes Feyre in the scenes where she features, the look on her face, the way she uses her hands or something, or her arms or anything, you can literally hear Feyre's banter in the back of your head from reading the ACOTAR series. It's actually really cool. But I do believe that this arc was necessary for her character because she is such a strong female character. We needed her to kind of not be able to step in and save the day so that Nesta can come forward as the main female lead in this book. So Feyre is sidetracked by something. No spoilers there. Elaine, we get to see so little of her. She's still very much a dark horse. I do not know a lot about her. There are a few scenes with her. She reveals some of Nesta's past to us, but nothing about herself. She's still so fiercely protected by Nesta and Feyre that when she offers to do something, both of them absolutely refuses, and she's once again moved to the sideline. I do believe once we get to see Elaine's character arc, it will be unbelievable. I think she's kind of a little stick of dynamite just waiting to ignite. So Azriel, at first we do not get to see a lot of him, but later on he steps in to help with the training, to help Cassian with the training, and then we get to see a lot more of him. Towards the end there's a few chapters that are just Cassian and Azriel, which is kind of sweet because we get to see that brother bond between them, and they kind of have to step in and help each other, which ends up being really sweet. Amren has very little scenes, but all her scenes where she features is pivotal moments in the book, or very prominent, important information is disclosed. So she's kind of like an exclamation mark, like an NB note. You know, when Amren appears on scene, you kind of have to take note of what's happening. She still has that very weird otherworldly feel towards her, to her, which you will probably always have, and of course she and Varian are very much together. We get to see even less of Moore. She really does not feature a lot. A few scenes. Her character has no development. She's mostly a political character in this book, where she is used or steps in as kind of a courtier between Valahan and the Night Court, where she kind of negotiates treaties and alliances. So we get to meet two new characters which are very awesome in the end, actually. The first of these is Emery. We get to meet her very towards the beginning of the book. Then she kind of disappears, but she does reappear later, and then she plays a vital role. So I loved Emery from the first interaction with Nesta. Her character goes through a lot of growth as well, kind of together with Nesta, along the same lines, but not really. Emery being an Illyrian warrior, she had her wings clipped, as was the tradition years ago before Rhys stopped it. And she has a lot of emotional scars to battle along with having her wings clipped. Then we also get to meet Gwyn, who is a priestess in the library. She has a really, really beautiful story arc. She is this quiet, drawn back, extremely, I don't even know how to put it. She's just like this little fluff ball, kind of. And how she turns from this little fluffy thing to a warrior is really, really awesome. We get to know her backstory as well, which is gut-wrenching really. And she and Azriel kind of has it's not really a history, it's an event that happened that ties them together. So I'm not sure if there may be a development between those two, perhaps. But Nesta, Emery and Gwen become sort of their own little circle, their circle of sisters. Gwen helps them a lot with researching Valkyrie techniques and fighting styles and everything, and that is what they end up doing, which is becoming 3 fierce warriors. Tamlin, we do get to see all of 2 scenes with Tamlin. Both these scenes emphasize how broken he is. For me it was really sad to see him like that. I do believe that we will get a redemption arc for Tamlin, I really hope so. I am one of the Tamlin deserves a chance supporters. Nobody is born a complete and utter numbnut. Something has to have happened in his life to have made him act that way. And I hope there comes redemption for him. I really do. I'm not sure. There's a lot of speculation about Tamlin and Elaine because she loves gardening so much and he's Lord of the Spring Court. Not sure. I don't know Elaine well enough to speculate about her character. A surprising turn of events is Ares in this book. I no longer hate Ares, which is weird because of what he did to Moore, right? But Ares allies with the Night Court and he plays a pivotal role with sharing information and what he does in the end to protect the Night Court. There's also kind of layers peeled back from him. Sarah kind of hints that there's more to what it seems that happened between Ares and Moore when he left her in the woods. So that's kind of interesting. And she really throws a curveball with that little scene that she released as a teaser with Ares and Nesta at the ball. But everything turns out okay in the end, I believe. Then we meet Nyx. So in order to avoid spoilers, I'm going to say nothing about Nyx. Go read the book to meet him. So the plot of this book is very much character driven. The plot line itself moves forward only a little, and this only happens in the last few chapters of the book, kind of like Crescent City, where there was a lot of character development and in the action is like jam-packed in the last 100 pages, kind of like that. So a large amount of this book is spent on Nesta's growth and development, and what an amazing arc for her. To all the Nesta haters out there, please read the book. I felt from the beginning, the same as with Tamlin, that no one is born cold and aloof. They are turned that way by life's events and everything. We do get to find out what happened to her and what she had to go through, and this is not only after she became High Fae, after she went into the cauldron. This was even before that, even before Tamlin came and took Feyre when they were kids. So there are a few events happening even then that molded her into what she became. She is now forced to face all these demons, and she must learn how to overcome each one of them. Most of them are emotional scars. The physical scars due to her the physical development due to her High Fae body is easily overcome, except for one little twist towards the end of the book, which is a physical difficulty that she overcomes. But read the book to see what that is. If I give that away, it will hint towards other stuff as well. We do see some character growth from Cassian's side. In order for Cassian to help Nesta, he had to reveal some of himself. He goes into more depth with what he did to everyone who hurt his mother, and it's actually really sad. And it turns out he is the perfect person to help Nesta through all of this, because he faced worse and he knew emotionally what she was going through. So Sarah's writing is once again top notch. You get pulled in from the get-go. Is the writing style the same as someone like Shakespeare, George Orwell, William Golding, all of those? No, but it is true to Sarah, easy to read, easy to fall in love with. So yeah, for me it was top notch. I really had a hard time balancing this book between binging it and savoring it, because the second Crescent City book's release date has already been pushed back, and I don't know how long we will have to wait for the next Avatar book. But unfortunately I ended up binging the entire end of the book in one afternoon. So after a very memorable walk with Nesta and Cassian in Valaris, everything just kind of sort of stockpiles onto one another. Just when you think you can take a breath, you turn the page and it's just knocked out of you once again. So once you get to that scene, make sure that you do have the time, because you won't be able to put the book down until the last page. The action does not stop. There's no lull in the movement of the book or anything. It's just jam-packed towards the end. So as usual, Sarah gets you emotionally attached to all her characters, and this is what ultimately will destroy you. Be prepared. So, smut. It is Sarah J Maas, so yes, there is smut, but in this book, yes, there is smut. Very, very explicit smut. A lot more so than her previous books were. So this one, I'm not sure, I don't know if she tried to make up for Crescent City, but yowza. So just be prepared for that. I do feel that some of the smut scenes could have been less. Maybe we could have had a little bit more Cassian point of view scenes, but with all the smut scenes you get to see a little bit of growth with Nesta each time. So it's kind of a double-edged sword on that one. The smut scenes do taper down towards the end of the book, where Sarah focuses more on the characters and the plot line, but just be prepared for like the first 3/4 of the book. Do I recommend this book? Yes. Go read it now. If you haven't read the entire series yet, just get the entire series, lock yourself in your home and binge it. It's really worth it. If your birthday is coming up, it is an excellent gift, just saying. So warnings and triggers within this book. There's a definite warning for explicit scenes. I would not even give this book to a 16-year-old to read. I would say just wait till you're 18 and read it then. But the most important part is that some of these scenes may be very hard for women to read, especially women who have been abused, raped, otherwise suppressed or mistreated by men. The book is very much based on this kind of story arc. If we look at the main characters. So just be prepared for that. People suffering from depression might also find some of these scenes difficult to read. Nesta really goes through a lot of emotional growth. But with all that in mind, please do yourself a favor and read it. Even though these scenes are really hard to get through, the techniques that Nesta and the other girls use to overcome these barriers, scars, can be applied to us today. You do not have to be high fae or living in Valaris or have pointy ears or anything. You just need to be a person with emotional scars. So Sarah really gives some amazing advice and tips. And as I was reading this, I was kind of wondering, because I suffer from bipolar depression myself, a lot of these techniques are techniques that I use frequently. And I was wondering how she could, she either had to, rule one of writing is write what you know. So she either had to go through it herself or have a close friend who went through it. In her acknowledgements at the end of the book, she mentions that this book was a sidekick to her facing some of her own issues with her mental health. So that explained a lot. I go into more detail in my vlog, but just do yourself a favor and read it. Really, just do it. As to what the next book will be, I don't know. If she sticks to the sisters, the next book will be Elaine. But I'm not sure. I really can't relate to Elaine's character at the moment at all, because we see so little of her. So perhaps there's gonna be like a novella tying us over towards Elaine. I'm not sure. Some people say more. Some people say Azrael. If it is Azrael, I think Elaine will tie into that as well. I'm not going to talk about the last like extra scenes that were in the books. The book that I got is just the story. The extra point of view from Azrael and or Rhysand is not in this book, so I haven't read that yet, so I can't comment on that. But once I do get to read it, I will do like a little update on my Insta stories or something about that. One thing is for sure, whatever the next book may be, we will ugly cry again. In this book, get yourself some tissues. There's a lot of scenes where I laughed out loud, especially with the banter within the inner circle, and also between Cassian and Nesta. They kind of start biting each other within their banter, which is really funny, and it really creates a great relationship with them. So yeah, that was A Court of Silver Flames. Next up will be spoilers. It is the vlog that I kept while reading. Just a heads up, I'm using my Canon camera to record this, but for my vlog I used my phone because I have it with me always. So the next few videos will be more portrait orientated than this one. If you do not want to see spoilers, switch off now. If you're fine with spoilers or have already read the book, continue on to the next part of this video. Okay, so the book starts off back in the cauldron when Nesta was pushed into the cauldron. We still do not know what she took from the cauldron. The only hint is that she took power from the cauldron, but we knew that already. So there's no hint or anything as to what she took, but I hope that secret will be revealed soon. So chapter 1, basically just the last chapter of Frost and Starlight. So diving into chapter 2 now. Hoping to learn more, because we didn't learn anything in chapter 1 that we didn't already know. Moving on to chapter 3 now. I have started to annotate in all earnesty. We just learned something really sad about Nesta. In Frost and Starlight, it mentions that she doesn't even light a fire for herself in her apartment that she now lives in. So you kind of feel like, okay, hello Nesta, everyone went through a trauma. Light yourself a fire. It's not that hard. But now in Silver Flames, through Nesta's point of view, she reveals that she cannot light a fire because the crackling of the flames reminds her too much of her father's neck snapping right in front of her. So she's starting to become a little bit more human. So I'm about to move on to chapter 5. Currently there's a lot of flashbacks between Nesta and Cassian from both their point of views in order for us to get to know them better. I've already found a passage that I really like. It goes, So Nesta had become a wolf, armed herself with invisible teeth and claws, and learned to strike faster, deeper, more lethally, had relished it. But when the time came to put away the wolf, she'd found it had devoured her too. Interesting turn of events. Eris has now allied with Cassian and Rhys and the rest of the Night Court, as Beren has allied with Brylan, one of the queens. And we've also learned that Koschei is the bone carver's brother who has put the spell on Vasa that turns her into a firebird by day and human by night. So maybe Eris turns out to be not all that bad, except for what he did to Moore. So SJM is once again staying true to form. I just read on the internet that Koschei is a male antagonist in Russian folklore. The most common feature of tales involving Koschei is a spell which prevents him from being killed. He hides his soul inside nested objects to protect it. So what are the odds that his soul was hidden inside the cauldron, and that which Nesta stole from the cauldron is a piece of Koschei's soul. Therefore, she now literally has the power of death. I have moved quite a ways with the book. I think I'm almost halfway through. I didn't want to update every single chapter. I didn't feel the need to do that. Nesta has started or is training with Cassian, which is really awesome. She feels that she doesn't ever want to be weak again, and we learn that Thomas tried to rape her when she broke up with him, and I think she never wants to be in a situation where she can't defend herself. She's also managed to get some of the priestesses in the library, actually just one at the moment, to train with them, who feels the same way. As we know, all the priestesses in the library was hurt by men in some way, and Rhys has given them sanctuary in the library. And Gwen now also doesn't want to feel weak ever again, so she started training with Nesta and Cassian. There's also this thing about the priestess Gwen, her priestess that she works for in the library is researching Valkyrie, and I think that could be a key point. According to the book, the Valkyrie is an extinct race, they all died, but I have a feeling that maybe Nesta is the start of a new Valkyrie race. I'm not sure. I get hints into that direction, get a feeling into that direction. We've also had 2 smut scenes, not what we've been waiting for, but it's there. And we've learned that Feyre is pregnant with a boy, but we knew that was coming. It was foreshadowed in Kingdom of Ash. I think it was kind of necessary to take Feyre out of the running for the battle that will obviously happen, because she's such a strong female lead and she's pregnant now. She can't use her magic to the fullest, so we needed her out of the way in some way so that Nesta can step in. Nesta is going to try and find one of the artifacts of the Dread Trove, which is 3 objects that's very, very powerful. For instance, the mask from the Dread Trove enables the wearer to bring back the dead. So the wearer could raise an army of dead, and that's what the cover of the book is about, is the mask, I believe. Nesta has also shown some of her powers, which is literally silver flame. So there's the Court of Silver Flames and the mask on the cover explained. But she hasn't intentionally learned to use it yet. She's now going to try and use her powers to scry and try to find the 3 objects before Brylan finds them, because she wants to use the cauldron to make herself young again, and Koschei wants to use Brylan to free himself from the lake. So there's a lot of things going on at the moment, a lot of possible happenings going on at the moment, and I hope the good guys manages to win. Two things. One, there's a really strong broken female presence in this book. A lot of redemption for females that have been hurt by males specifically. The priestesses feature a lot in this book, and as we know, Reese has built the library as a sanctuary for the priestesses who has been hurt by males. Nesta, who we learn has been hurt by Thomas, or he attempted to hurt her at least. She has some daddy issues. We meet Emery, whose wings got clipped by her father, and she's also now joined the training. So I don't know if Sarah is somehow, a lot of the times the book itself says more about the author than about the story. I don't know if this is the case, but I really do like the female redemption that is going on. Females training to become stronger, to not be victims to men anymore. I feel really strongly about that. So I really do like that aspect of the book. And number two, I was right. Nesta's power is death. She lost control of her power, and Cassian and Az came to her room to try and subdue her, but they couldn't. Reese went out up to the house and managed to subdue her after a lot of struggling, and even his power was struggling to subdue Nesta to get her back. But what got her back eventually was Cassian's voice that grounded her, and she managed to reel in her power. But at the end of the chapter, Reese says that Nesta's power is pure death. So I still say that a Koshei soul was in the cauldron, and since Koshei is death and she stole from the cauldron, she stole a piece of Koshei's soul, which is now her power. Nesta has managed to find one of the three of the dead trove, the dread trove, the mask, and she is able to wield it, but she's strangely drawn to the mask. So Reese has now asked Hellion to ward the mask that no one can enter unless Hellion himself lets them in. Something strange has also happened. Cassian took Nesta to a blacksmith to see how weapons are made, and she asked to hammer some of the weapons themselves. And the blacksmith has now brought the weapons to Reese because, as he says, these weapons are cursed. And they've learned that Nesta somehow imbued the weapons with some of her power, and Amren now thinks that Nesta is able to create other trove items. Reese and the others doesn't want to tell Nesta about it, but Cassian wants to. I'm kind of on the side of Cassian because Amren still believes she's unstable and will use this knowledge to create more weapons. I don't believe that. I think her character has grown more than that. Also, there's like a sideline little drama. Feyre's baby has wings, which is awesome normally, but because she's high Fey, her body is not made to bear babies with wings, and she will most likely die during the birth. So Reese is frantically looking for a way to save her and the baby. So that's like a little sideline drama that's still unfolding. Akasif is so full of emotional healing. Nesta kind of lost it and managed to go down all 10,000 steps and into Valaris, and she faced Amren, and Varian went to fetch Feyre probably because she stormed in, and Nesta wound up telling Feyre that the baby might kill her if he does not die himself as well, and Feyre was devastated. And upon seeing the hurt and tears in Feyre's face, Nesta just kind of stormed out, and Reese told Cassian to get Nesta out of the city or otherwise he will kill her. So Cassian took Nesta to the mountains where they hiked, and It's just interesting how physical exertion can bring about emotional healing. Nesta wound up telling him about why she doesn't like fires, and they spent about 2 days at this lake where she kind of healed a little bit, and they went back to the House of Wind actually after that to resume their training. It's just interesting how Sarah writes these thoughts for Nesta that are really very accurate of emotional struggles. It makes me think that either she went through something like this herself or has a very close friend who went through this, who shared her experiences with her, because it's really very accurate. And I would recommend this book for anyone who has emotional pain or emotional healing that has to happen. Nesta and the others are also training in Valkyrie methods of fighting and mind stilling. They kind of have this plan to reinvent the Valkyries and get them going again, I guess. So my thoughts that maybe Nesta's Valkyrie is kind of becoming true. We've also passed the dance scene where that Sarah released as a teaser for us where Nesta danced with Eris. It was actually really misleading, the teaser, because it's so sweet. Eris kind of monopolizes Nesta because she dances so good. And by the third dance, Cassian cuts in, not with a "may I have this dance" or anything. He just approaches them and tells Eris, "move." And that's it. And Nesta's kind of like, "Am I supposed to believe that you want to dance with me now?" And he says yes. And they actually end up dancing quite well. And it is revealed that Cassian had secret dance lessons with Moore, which is really sweet. Oh, and of course, they have found the harp. Nesta managed to scry without really scrying, and she found the harp underneath the prison. She managed to free the harp, but by freeing the harp, she also let Lanthus out of his cell. So Cassian had to face Lanthus again and orders Nesta to run, but she runs and then turns back, obviously to save Cassian. And she ended up being able to destroy Lanthus, which is supposed to be unkillable, but since she is death itself, she manages to kill Lanthus. And she also figures out how to use the harp, which is once again very interesting, where Sarah kind of writes this multiverse where Throne of Glass, Akatar, and Crescent City kind of happens at the same time in different universes, and this harp has the ability to transport you to other universes. And since the harp has 26 strings, there's this theory that there is 26 universes that it can transfer you to. So once again, this multiverse idea of Sarah comes into play, which is really awesome. So the thing that finally made the dam break between Cassian and Nesta was that he made her a mixtape. Not a tape as much as a rock that has sort of a memory that can absorb music. So he went around and he recorded all her favorite songs, which he gave her for winter solstice. And we also learned what was in the box that he threw in the river during the previous winter solstice, and it was not a siphon like everybody kind of guessed. It was a little, like one of the very first books that was ever made by fairies. It was this tiny little book because she's a book lover. He wanted to give it to her. But yeah, this year he got her a mixtape, and she all but threw herself at him. So yeah, and then I am pretty sure there was a mating bond involved, because a lot of the same words and actions accompanied their scene that accompanied Rhys and Feyre in chapter 55. So I think there was a mating bond involved, although Sarah did not specifically say so, but I do believe so. All honesty, guys, I binged the book to the end without even stopping to vlog. The book is really kind of steady paced, not slow paced, more steady paced. And then all of a sudden she does a crescent city on us, and everything happens at the same time. So Cassian reveals that he and Nesta are indeed mates, and then she sends him away because she feels it's the last of her humanity left if she accepts the mating bond. Like, why, Nesta? But of course, all hell breaks loose, and Ares gets abducted by Brylan, so Cassian and Azriel has to go save him. And Nesta, Emery, and Gwyn gets abducted. What later turns out to be Illyrian warriors, and they get landed smack in the middle of the rite. But something's not right because you're not allowed weapons or anything in the rite, and this time there are weapons around, and they're thrown into the rite in just their nightgowns, and it's freezing cold and snowing. And Cassian is obviously twisted out of his mind because he's not allowed to interfere. If he interferes, both him and Nesta will be killed. So it's just, from there on out, it's just really, really fast-paced. And so Azriel and Cassian eventually finds Ares, and it turns out he has been under the crown's influence the whole time. And well, at first it actually looks like he betrayed them, but he hasn't. And Brylan now manages to get Cassian under control of the crown, which is just insane, and Azriel is going bonkers. Gwyn, Emery, and Nesta make it to Ramiel, and they start climbing, and they end up in this vicious final battle because all of them are hurt by now or very, very tired. And Belias and his guys stalk them up to the mountain as well, and Nesta turns back to fight with Belias and the others and tells Gwyn and Emery to go. So obviously Gwyn and Emery then makes it to the top, and they are winnowed away when they touch the rock at the top of Ramiel. But Nesta remains, and Belias almost kills her, but at the last second there's just blood exploding all over her, and Cassian is standing behind Belias, but he's under the protection of the crown, under the spell of the crown rather, and Brylan now has control over him, but he starts to fight it because she wants him to kill Nesta to ultimately break him to kill his mate, and he just flat out refuses, and obviously Nesta refuses. So she goes bonkers, and she ends up attacking Brylan, and she unmade her. She literally grabbed her by the face, and she went from an old hag to a young hag, and then just to dust. She just stopped existing. And then, to put insult to injury, Moore and Azriel winnows to them, and all they say is it's Feyre, and she's obviously gone into labor. So Nesta and Cassian rush back to the manor, where Feyre is not doing well at all. And so this is where Sarah J Maas really starts with all the feels. They arrive at the manor, and Feyre is bleeding, but she's not stopping, and Maja says that the only way to get the baby out is to cut him out via C-section. Rhys is beyond himself, and eventually Maja does cut the baby out, but the baby is underdeveloped because Feyre went into labor too soon, so he's just a teeny tiny premature little winged human fae being. And obviously now Feyre is dying, Rhys is going crazy, Azriel and Cassian needs all 7 their siphons just to hold him back. But then Nesta steps in, and this is what I've been saying the whole time. Because she is death herself, she's going to prevent Feyre's death. So she uses the harp to stop time, slow time down rather, and she makes a deal with the cauldron that if it tells her how to save Feyre, the cauldron can have his power back. And the mother actually speaks to her, and she ends up saving Feyre and little Nyx's life, which is the name Feyre and Rhysand gave the baby. So yeah, Rhysand is now very much in debt of Nesta, and he's doting on her. He ends up giving the House of Wind to Cassian and Nesta as a mating present, because obviously she accepts the mating bond, and they're going to have a ceremony which is not in the book. So yeah, Koshia is still out there somewhere, but they now have all 3 objects of the Dread Trove, which Nesta opts to hide again because she doesn't want that power. She still has a little bit of her power left. We don't know how much yet, but she manages to save her sister, and it ends very beautifully with the 3 sisters visiting their father's grave and kind of saying thank you for all that he's done for them. It ends up really being an awesome book, a book full of emotional healing. Yeah, it's really anyone that has ever gone through depression or suicidal thoughts, or just feeling like you are absolutely useless in this world, really needs to read the book. Especially it's very aimed at women who has been abused or oppressed by men, freeing themselves, liberating themselves, empowering themselves. It's really, really an awesome book in that regard. Yeah, I believe there are talk of a high king. Reese says he doesn't want the job. I think maybe Nyx will be high king. I'm not sure. As to who the next book will be about, it's anybody's guess at the moment. Maybe she goes on with Elaine's story. We didn't see a lot of more in this book because she was in Valahan most of the time, doing political stuff over there, trying to get them to sign a treaty. But yeah, so maybe more Asriel and Elaine. I'm not sure. The book I have doesn't have the extra POV of Rhysand and Feyre or Asriel, so it's just plain the story. But yeah, the next book is anybody's guess, but I am so looking forward to getting back into that world. I do not believe we will get another Nesta book. I think her story arc is done. Not done, but we've learned what we need to from her. So it's time to move on to our next character, or maybe she's gonna do Kingdom of Ash kind of thing and just have multiple POVs. I don't know. I just know I'm looking forward to it a lot.